You know that feeling you get sometimes? You're scrolling through social media, maybe just working around town,
Mm-hmm.
or even just chatting with friends, and bam, there it is.
Yeah.
That little voice pops up, that like internal critic.
The comparer.
Exactly. Pointing out how someone else seems to have it all figured out. You know, cooler job, perfect life, less stress. It's just so easy to feel like you're constantly falling short.
And it's never been easier to feel that way, has it? I mean, we live in these huge communities now, super connected.
Right. Cities, the internet.
Yeah, they expose us to just countless comparisons. The source material we're looking at today calls the hierarchies we see, human accomplishment, dizzyingly vertical.
Dizzyingly
Yeah.
vertical. Wow. It paints this picture where everyone else is way up high
Yeah.
and you feel kind of stuck at the bottom rung.
Right, and that's just like pure fuel for that internal critic. You play music. PFT, you're no Jimmy Page.
Or Jack White. Yeah. You cook dinner. Well, it's definitely not grapefruit foam or that Scotch tobacco ice cream thing the text mentions.
Yeah, the crazy chef stuff.
Or someone's got a flashier boat, a fancier watch.
Yeah.
And suddenly your job feels dull, your house is a mess.
Everything feels second rate. That voice, it just weaponizes those comparisons, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Uses them to hammer home this feeling of like complete failure or incompetence. It's relentless.
But here's the tricky part, isn't it?
Yeah.
We actually need standards. I mean, you absolutely want your surgeon to have high standards.
Or the person fixing your car brakes. Yeah, definitely.
Mediocrity, well, it has real consequences. Crumbling buildings, bad products, stuff fails.
Absolutely. Competence matters. Striving matters. But that internal critic, it takes the idea of standards and twists it into this brutal black and white thing.
Yeah, like you're either a total success or a total failure. No middle ground.
Exactly. And the source points out that ignores all the, quote, vital degrees and gradations of value that actually exist. It's a distorted view designed to make you feel bad, basically.
Okay, so if the critic's using these unfair comparisons and this like harsh binary logic to make you feel inadequate, how do you get out of that trap?
Well, that leads us right into the core idea from the text we're exploring. The specific rule for this deep dive is, it sounds simple, but it's actually pretty profound. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today.
Okay, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Let's really dig into that. So our mission here is to figure out why comparing ourselves to other people is just so often unhelpful.
Counterproductive, yeah.
Right. And why standards are still crucial, even with that nagging critic. And maybe most interestingly, how focusing on self-comparison, even in really small ways, isn't just about getting better, but can actually change what you even see around you, like what you're capable of noticing.
It's fascinating stuff. Let's get into it.
Okay, so starting with that comparison trap, like we said, modern life just throws these images of success at us constantly.
All those examples from the text, the rock star you're not.
The weird chef creations.
The tacky yacht, the complicated watch. It's all out there.
And that's what the inner critic loves.
Yeah.
Right? It sees someone else's shiny surface, their highlight reel.
And whispers that your whole life is just failing by comparison. Your career's just kind of meh. Your house is never perfect.
Your efforts feel second rate.
And it feels convincing because, like you said, standards are real. Some people don't measure up, and that does matter.
But the critic takes that truth and just applies it wrongly, uses comparisons to people whose lives, whose situations are totally different.
Exactly. And that's the core flaw in its logic. It assumes life is just like one single game, one race, and everyone's running it under the exact same conditions.
Which is just obviously not true.
Not at all.
The source makes this really key point. There isn't just one good way to live, one good game. There are many good games.
Yeah, being a lawyer is valuable, sure. But so is being a plumber, or a doctor, or a carpenter, or a teacher.
Right. They're different, but they all have their own kind of excellence, their own meaning.
And if you find you're, not succeeding, or you feel stuck in one game, the cool thing is you can try another one.
Or, like the text says, invent a totally new one. Like that mime with the oven mitts example.
The mime with the oven bits. Yeah, that sticks with you. Pure invention.
And really, for most of us, we're not just playing one game anyway, are we? You're probably juggling a bunch.
Oh, totally. Your career game, your friend game, family game, maybe some personal project, hobbies.
Right. All at the same time.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, winning at everything all at once isn't even the real goal. Maybe that just means you're not pushing yourself, not growing. And maybe growth, your trajectory over time, maybe that's a more important kind of winning than just like ticking a box right now.
That distinction feels really important. Should victory now always beat out your overall direction? When you put it like that, comparing your current situation to someone else's seems, well, way less relevant to your actual progress.
It is. Because the specifics of all those different games, you're playing the unique challenges of your particular mix of circumstances, your history, your skills. It's all fundamentally unique to you. Nobody else has your exact setup.
So comparing your messy, unique multi-game situation to someone else's messy, unique multi-game situation is just apples and oranges. Or maybe apples and, I don't know, spaceships.
Pretty much. And the text suggests gratitude here as a kind of shield.
Right. Protection against feeling like a victim or getting resentful.
Yeah. It reminds you that, okay, maybe your colleague's doing better at work, but maybe their marriage is falling apart, something you don't see.
Or that famous person you admire turns out to be awful behind the scenes.
Exactly. You don't see their whole picture. All the other games, they might be losing badly.
Use that.
So focusing on what you do have, even with all the challenge, that helps ground you, protects you from those really corrosive feelings comparison can stir up.
Okay, so if comparing to others is out, because everyone's situation is unique, and we're all playing multiple different games, how do you even start to figure out what standards do apply to you? How do you measure your own progress?
Well, as you get older, as you become more individual, your life just naturally becomes less comparable to others anyway. You move off the standard path.
You have to, like the text says, leave the house ruled by your father,
Yeah.
symbolically speaking.
Exactly. Leave those preset paths and rules behind and figure out how to navigate your own unique chaos.
So you've got to get to know this unique you. The text has this fascinating suggestion. Try to see yourself almost like a stranger.
Yeah, to really figure out what you actually find valuable, what genuinely brings you pleasure, what you truly want, separate from expectations.
And then managing that self isn't about being a dictator. You can't just, order yourself around and expect perfect results.
No, you're not your own master or your own slave, as the text puts it. You have a specific nature. Some things genuinely interest you, pull you in, others just don't.
Which leads to that idea that maybe you're a bad employee in your own life because you're an even worse boss to yourself.
Right. Tyrannical, demanding, totally unrealistic, no negotiation, no rewards for effort. Who'd want to work for a boss like that? Even if that boss is you.
It's a powerful idea.
It really is. It forces you to think about negotiating fairly with yourself. Asking honestly, what do I actually need to feel like this effort is worth it? To feel like more than just a, quote, beast of burden.
What kind of reward would genuinely motivate me, even if it seems small or silly?
Exactly. And don't judge your needs. Don't say, oh, I shouldn't need a coffee just for doing this. Just figure out what works. It's about respecting yourself enough to ask what would make the effort worthwhile for you.
This part of the text also talks about resentment. It calls it a revelatory emotion. That really jumped out at me. What's it revealing?
Resentment, yeah. The source links it with arrogance and deceit, calls it an evil triad. But it's always a signal, always. It reveals one of two things. Either, one, you're just being immature, whining when you shouldn't be. And the advice there is basically shut up, quit whining, and get on with it.
Tough love.
Sometimes needed. Or two, and this is crucial, there is actual tyranny afoot. Real oppression or unfairness happening.
And if it is tyranny maybe from someone else, or maybe even from yourself, that inner tyrant boss,
then the text argues you have a moral obligation to speak up, to push back against it, even if it's easier, quieter, less confrontational in the moment, to just stay silent.
because silence is a lie, and tyranny thrives on lie.
Exactly. It directly asks you, the listener, what are you putting up with that you shouldn't be? What are you faking? What necessary conflict are you avoiding just to keep the peace? Asking those hard questions is vital for knowing yourself and setting your own authentic standards.
Okay, so you're doing this work, getting to know yourself, negotiating fairly, not being a tyrant. How does all that self-understanding connect to what you actually see in the world? How does it change your perception?
This is where it gets really, really mind-bending. Our minds, fundamentally, are built to aim, like a hunter, right? You pick a target, you focus, you move towards it.
Okay.
In life, we're always at some point a place we see as imperfect somehow, and we're oriented towards a better point B based on what we value.
And the source uses those amazing cognitive psychology experiments. Daniel Simons.
That's the one. To show how powerfully our aim dictates what we can even perceive. The ones where people miss really obvious stuff.
Yeah. The road changing in the wheat field.
The gorilla walking through the basketball game.
Right. Or the person swapping out behind the counter. I totally missed the gorilla the first time.
Me too. Most people do. It's called sustained inattentional blindness.
So why do we miss something so blatant?
Because we weren't aiming to see it. Vision takes a ton of brain power. That sharp high-res part of our eye, the fovea, it's tiny. So our brain triages. It focuses that high-res vision only on what's relevant to our current goal.
Like counting the basketball passes.
Exactly. Everything else gets filtered out. The gorilla wasn't relevant to counting passes, so poof, invisible. We basically navigate the world's insane complexity by zoning in only on what matters for our current aim.
Wow. So we literally see what helps us move towards our goals, and we're effectively blind to almost everything else.
Pretty much. And this ties into that ancient Vedic idea of Maya, right?
That the world we perceive is partly illusion, shaped by our own desires.
Exactly. Our values or desires, they aren't just thoughts. They're like tools built into us. They orient us, and they resist change. So the source suggests, if you're unhappy, if you're stuck, maybe it's because you're being blinded by what you currently want.
Huh. So maybe that thing you desperately want.
Yeah.
Like maybe envying your boss's job. That very desire is stopping you from seeing what you actually need, or seeing other paths.
Precisely. The solution isn't always just getting that specific thing. Sometimes the solution is changing the desire itself.
Changing the aim.
Yeah. It involves this tough process the text calls retooling your value structure. Sacrificing the old aim. Letting go of, I must have that specific job if that's what's making you bitter and blind.
And that sacrifice, letting go, is what allows new possibilities, things you were blind to before, to suddenly appear.
Yes. It opens up the view. You have to shift your aim to something broader. Maybe something like, I want whatever it is that would genuinely make my life better.
You have to actually want that, right? You can't fake it.
You can't fake it. Your perceptual system won't cooperate if you're faking it. And this retooling, aiming for better, often means taking on more responsibility, facing things you were maybe avoiding before.
This whole idea of aiming higher, retooling your values,
Yeah.
it feels like it's building towards something bigger in the text than just, personal satisfaction.
It absolutely is. The source goes into how our deepest beliefs, our core values, are often implicit. They show up in our actions, not just our words. And it looks at ancient wisdom traditions like the Bible, not necessarily as literal history, but as these incredible distilled records of humanity trying for millennia to figure out how should we act, what's ultimately valuable, even before we had science as we know it.
It mentions the contrast between, say, the Old Testament God archetype may be seen as harsher, focused on consequences, and the New Testament one more about benevolence, love, and Nietzsche's critique, framing them as different ways people have tried to grasp reality's demands.
Exactly. And building on that foundation, the source introduces this really ambitious concept, aiming for the improvement of being, capital I, capital B.
Okay. Improvement of being. What does that mean exactly?
It's not just about making your life a bit better. It's this much grander aim, striving to make existence itself better. For you, yes, but also for your family, your friends, strangers, even, incredibly, your enemies.
Wow.
Yeah.
And not just right now?
No, across time. Today, tomorrow, next year, next century, maybe forever. It's aiming at the highest possible good you can conceive of.
That sounds huge, almost impossible.
Well, it requires a kind of faith, the text suggests. Acting as if existence itself, despite all the suffering and awfulness, might ultimately be justifiable because of its goodness.
So not like a naive belief, but a conscious choice.
Exactly. An equally irrational commitment, as the text calls it, that you willingly take on to counterbalance life's unavoidable tragic irrationalities. It's the courage to aim for something that seems way out of reach.
Okay, that's a massive vision.
Yeah.
Inspiring, but massive. So how on earth do you bring that back down to the everyday? How does aiming for the improvement of being connect back to the practical rule? Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. How do you actually do that?
Right. This is where it gets super practical. The first step is just taking an honest look at your life right now.
Like hiring a house inspector for your own life.
Exactly like that. You need to see the mess, the clutter, the things that aren't working. Not how you wish they were, but how they actually are. And that internal critic, if you can learn to listen to it carefully, cooperate with it rather than just getting crushed, it can actually help with that inspection.
Okay, so you see the flaws,
Yeah.
but you don't just wallow in them.
No. The key is to find just one thing that's out of order in your room, in your schedule, in your head, whatever, that genuinely bothers you. And this is critical. It has to be something you could actually fix and something you would actually be willing to fix.
Those three questions again. What's bothering me? Can I fix it? And crucially, am I willing to fix it?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And if the answer to any of those is no for the thing you first thought of, you aim smaller, break it down more.
Like the paper stack example.
Mm-hmm.
Too much. Okay, how about just one part of the stack for just 5 minutes?
Exactly. 5 minutes, one corner of the desk. Well, that feels doable, right? For almost anyone.
Yeah, it does.
And that's the genius. You negotiate with yourself, honestly, like you would with a difficult person you actually want to get along with. Ask yourself, okay, what reward would make doing this tiny, annoying thing worthwhile?
A specific coffee. 20 minutes, guilt-free reading, watching a dumb video.
Whatever works. Ask honestly what would motivate you. And don't judge it. Don't get into, oh, I shouldn't need a reward for 5 minutes of tidying. Just figure out what reward would actually get you to do it.
And then you absolutely must follow through. Do the task, get the reward, no cheating.
Crucial. If you do the task but skip the reward, you break trust with yourself. That negotiation fails.
Okay.
But if you do this little daily practice, even if you mess it up sometimes, it builds trust. And more importantly, it slowly, steadily raises your baseline.
Like compound interest.
Exactly, like compound interest. Doing this every day, tackling one small voluntary thing you are willing to fix it, adds up. The text suggests do this consistently for a year or two. Your life will be noticeably, dramatically different. 3 years. You might not even recognize yourself.
And connecting back to that idea about vision, as you start aiming for this tiny daily improvement, fixing these little things.
What you aim at determines what you see, remember. So as you consistently aim at making life just a little bit better today than yesterday, as you tackle these manageable, voluntary things, you start to perceive possibilities, solutions, resources, things that were totally invisible to you before.
Because your aim has shifted.
Your aim has shifted. You're aligning yourself with truth, with the highest good, not through some grand, impossible gesture, but through this simple, habitual question. What could I do that I would do to make life a little better right now?
And by focusing all that effort on being slightly better than you were yesterday, doing these small, voluntary, negotiated things that you are willing to do, you're actually living out Rule 4.
You are. You're finding solutions tailored specifically to you, and you become, well, less bothered about what everyone else is doing because, frankly, you've got plenty of meaningful stuff to work on yourself.
You're tending to the day, fixing what's right in front of you.
While simultaneously orienting yourself, aiming your path towards the highest possible good you can imagine. Your life starts to aim upward, one tiny, willing step at a time.
Wow. Okay, so we started this deep dive talking about that really common, painful feeling comparing ourselves to others in this world of dizzyingly vertical hierarchies.
Driven by that harsh inner critic.
We looked at how, yeah, standards matter, but the critic uses them wrongly, black and white thinking, unfair comparisons. It's just damaging.
And we talked about that liberating idea. Life isn't one game, it's many games, unique to you. So comparing is often just irrelevant.
Right. And the importance of really understanding yourself, negotiating with your own nature, listening to signals like resentment.
Identifying tyranny, whether internal or external.
And then we got into how our aim literally shapes what we see. Remember the gorilla? How unhappiness might mean we're blinded by a specific desire and we need to retool our values.
Which ultimately led us towards aiming really high for the improvement of being, not just for ourselves, but for everyone across time, acting with that kind of faith and goodness.
And the way to actually do that, to live Rule 4 day by day, is surprisingly simple, almost mundane. Take stock, find one small thing bothering you that you could and would fix.
Negotiate the terms with yourself, the effort, the reward, and then do it. Follow through.
Do that every day. Compare yourself only to who you were yesterday. Trust that compound interest.
Those small, voluntary, willing steps add up.
So here's something to think about. If what you aim at truly determines what you can see, what new possibilities, what hidden beauty, what goodness might start showing up in your world and inside you, if you just consistently, patiently aimed only at being slightly better than you were the day before, by seeking out just one small thing each day that you are genuinely willing to fix, what kind of fundamentally better life might that simple practice start to reveal?